Welcome everybody to the season finale, the last episode of the year. A Dram and a Blether. I'm Chance, that's Gary, that's Ryan. We're here, and today we are going to talk about Laphroaig. Laphroaig Distillery, one of my favorites, one of many people's favorites, hell, the Prince's favorite. We're going to Laphroaig Distillery. It's going to be amazing. Gary, tell us a little bit about this place.
So last week, if you remember, we were at Ardbeg 2 weeks ago, and then Lagavulin last week. And so now if we walk out the front of Lagavulin, continue along the pathway along the coast, and then we'll come to Laphroaig, which is like the three of them, as we said, is in a row. So you get into Laphroaig, and that's when you get into something special from there. Now created 1815, Alexander and Donald Johnson. They created it there, and the actual distillery from 1815 remained in the family for about 140 years through to 1950. And what actually happened was, it was really cool, it was given over by the remaining heir at the time, Ian Hunter. He gave it over to Bessie Williamson, and she had actually, it was a lady that just worked at it and ended up working there for 40 years, and they gave the whole lock, stock and barrel to her to run that. Now in the 60s, now she took it over, and in the 60s she realised it needed some investment, and that's when we'll step in now. Suntory Beam, who are the owners of it today, so she brought it in to get a lot of investments from that side there. But anyway, where do we get started? You want to just delve straight into the whiskey, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I do. I mean, speaking of Ian Hunter, let's start with their flagship, the base expression for everything they do, the Laphroaig 10. They say it's the same as when he was doing it, so let's have a taste of that.
So I do have I have a bottle of 10 that differs from Yaltu's, and this is an independent bottling by Lonok, and the primary difference is this is a non-chill filtered, non-caramel colored bottle. Other than that, I think it's the same proof, which is 46%. Is that what you guys have on yours?
Well, I have 43.
No.
Yeah,
we're 43. So it's the standard issue is 43.
Right. So
you've got
I'm going to get a
edition.
wee bit more tipsy on the Laphroaig 10 than y'all, and maybe a little bit of a richer mouthfeel due to the non-chill filter, although I have not been able to tell a difference myself. No. So, but I'm going to lord it over y'all, the extra 3% of alcohol.
Extra 3%.
I do want to bring up one thing about Laphroaig, is that I don't know if it's something about the Islay distilleries, but they're a little bit kooky. They had an ad campaign a few years ago where they would actually play up people basically hating their whiskeys. If you look at some of these old ads, they would have a bottle of Laphroaig 10 and then some outrageous quote, like "tastes like a burning hospital," for example, or "it's like being kicked in the face by a horse that's been galloping in a peaty bog." And it's a sort of like, well, take your signature, attribute and just play it up, no matter if people like it or not. There's it reminds me, there's a ski resort, the one I learned to ski at, Snowbird, up in Utah, and it's famous for being extremely difficult. And so they took all the negative Yelp reviews from their Yelp reviews for the ski resort, like, this place is too difficult, and they had a huge ad campaign out of how difficult the ski resort was. So all of their 1-star reviews, they actually made ads out of.
So they copied Laphroaig and said, tell us your worst about it, and that's actually the best you're describing what we've got. So let's talk quickly as we get in. This is intoxicating. But as we're doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about that, because I was lucky enough to go and visit this distillery. And the nice thing about it, it's one of the only distilleries that still does its own malting. It doesn't do 100% of its malting, but it's got the barley, it's got like a malting floor, and they'll do about 20% of their malt they'll actually do themselves. And the interesting part about it is they'll do that 20% at between 50 and 60 ppm. Now, so they're going to expose it. There'll be a cold peat smoke coming through, exposing it that. The other 80% they're getting from Port Ellen maltings, and that they'll get more between a 35 and say 45. Mix it both together, and you've roughly got about a 40 to 45 ppm is what they're basically putting it out at. Now, we know that the ppm is just an indication. It's more about what they're doing in the distillation of it, but it's just to say it's got a nice medium peat wrapper around it.
I just love how we've been on Islay for a few weeks now in this show, and each one of these has just such a unique character, even though I think a lot of people would taste all of these and be like, these all taste the same. It's like someone lit fireworks in my mouth or something like that. But I think of the ones we've visited, I think the medicinal iodine, this comes through the most, I feel, in the Laphroaig for
Yeah.
me
Yeah,
of
this
all
is
of them.
this is the quintessential, isn't it? I mean, it's the
Yeah,
quintessential. A lot of us, it's a lot of people first introduction to PT whiskies will have this one. And it's the coastal medicinal. I mean, it's every adjective we can use to describe. I mean, for me, it's like antiseptic bandages. Now that ointment, an antiseptic one they'll rub on if you get a
definitely.
bruise.
It definitely feels like you know, finally H Listerine or
Yeah.
have you. It's definitely like Listerine from a house fire. A bottle of Listerine that's been exposed to a house fire or something,
Oh,
in a pleasant way.
yeah.
But
Put it on
um,
your now. Put it on your tongue. Now, just put some on your tongue. Now, wrap it around. We'll just a couple.
but what hits me about this also is that the finish is to me not incredibly super long. You know, this is more like a medium finish for me.
Well,
Mhm.
it's an oily. Do you see that oiliness when it comes in? It's got that oily
Yeah.
getting a flash pan like in your mouth, and then it finishes with that little bit of that salty fizziness. It's as if you a little bit even fizzy
Mm.
lemonade there. There's a little bit of that now salty.
Very briny on the finish. You're right.
Yeah, that comes in. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's like to
This
some
is just
people, as they say,
so enjoyable. This is
oh,
such a
yeah,
great. This doesn't require like a lot of. I think uh, when I drink like a Corvrekian or something, it's more contemplative to me. This one's more, I feel, offers up what it has immediately. You
yeah,
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
There's no hiding. This is delicious.
yeah, this is like I don't know, and maybe this doesn't make any sense. Like the majority of my thoughts on how things taste and smell, but this just reminds me of like an Isla dessert, right? Like if I'm going in, I'm having some Ardbeg, and I've got that deep, savory, salty, that peat, and and then I go to Bruichladdich and I get some nice sweet notes. But this is peated, and it's sweet and it's tasty, and it reminds me of like a dessert. It's a little bit brighter, but the oils give it a lovely little character to it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I love this dram.
yeah.
the
And
oily character, to follow up on what you said, Chance, the oily character presents itself in a more forward manner, I think, than other
Yeah,
Islay whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I want to also highlight how accessible I feel that this whiskey is. I think this is
yeah,
super accessible.
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a great one just to make people understand what a peatiness flavour tastes like. This is delicious. So they've got 7 stills at Laphroaig, and they've basically got 3 wash stills and 4 spirit stills, and one of the spirit stills is a small one. And that small one, what it does is it adds fruity, oily, heavy oils to it when it gets distilled. So they do a mix of that, and it's that mixing of those different ones that really makes some really interesting now distillations that they're bringing out. Like this one, there's the 10, they're like now the flagship one.
Mm.
Okay, what a great start. You feeling you want to
I
take
think-
us to the next one?
Yeah, I think from here, let's go to the quarter cask. I think that'll be the best way to follow up the 10. And then
Okay.
from the quarter cask, we can move up into a little bit more aging.
Okay. So the quarter cask being one of the ones that they've brought out more in recent times, and I'll say in the last 20 years. Like that was about 2004. They started introducing this to the range.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously quarter cask. Now the name's telling you a lot about it, but basically they're taking the same now Laphroaig based distillation like that, and they're putting it 6 years in a standard cask size, and then after 6 years, for about the last couple of years, they're then putting into a quarter cask and a quarter the size of it. And really, what they're doing, they're exposing the whiskey to a lot more wood. And so, in one way, you could say they're accelerating the whiskey process by putting in front of that. So it's probably about 8.25 years old for this one here. Ryan, thoughts?
So
You're a
without
cask
sampling
master.
this, what can we assume? We can assume because there's a greater surface area of wood that the
There's a
whiskey is
little bit
exposed
more-
to. We're going to have a more of a oakiness to this, correct? Do you
That's
think?
correct. Yeah. I
And
think that's
and,
what we'd expect.
and in terms of what the label says, it says that this is aged in specially commissioned quarter casks like it was done 2 centuries ago. So is that true? Have casks just grown in the past 2 centuries, like sort of like American SUVs? Like one time
Yeah, I
pickup
think
trucks were tiny and now they're 8 cylinders. Have we had cask inflation over the last 2 centuries, Gary? What's the 411 on casks?
The
What do we
411
know
on
about
casks
this?
and that.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say on the last part, yes, we've had cask inflation to size, but you've got all these different standard sizes of them, and probably thinking about on the island as well, they probably had smaller casks over there. They would have had access to the same sherry casks we've talked about that a lot of them had, and then in more recent time, the bourbon cask coming over was certainly big, like the big boy cask like that. But I think maybe it was more something more to do with Islay that they had just had some smaller casks, and I think that Laphroaig was probably doing them in quarter ones. Think about the quarter cask as well. The other one is it's actually a size that you might actually go and send the actual cask, the entire cask offshore back onto the mainland, and maybe going to the general store where they've got the cask, and you're basically getting the whiskey poured out from the cask into your container, your glass container that you take the whiskey away yourself. And it wasn't all about bottles back then. Sometimes it's a jug of it.
Oof. That's a lot of oak in there, son. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, that certainly. I mean, what's interesting is even on the nose, you don't get it's not like the same as that 10 to already hits you. This one is getting mellowed a little bit. That more wood is now starting to balance in.
Yeah,
you're still, because it's a younger whiskey, you're still getting some of that freshness, we'll say, coming through from the barley.
And I think this can be an analogy to the Ardbeg Wee Beastie that we tasted a few years ago. This is a bit of a younger whiskey. I think it's interesting that they artificially accelerated the aging process by exposing it to this additional wood. But the wood is more virgin, so it's going to be, you're not going to have that sherry or that bourbon influence. This is going to be more woody sort of influence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is very interesting on the palm test, I think, on the back of the hand test. The peat for me is not just blasting me in the nose.
No, it's not forward at all. This really just calms it down a little bit. It's a little bit. It's like a little bit more sophisticated 10, isn't it?
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't bought a bottle of Laphroaig in a bit. I think when I got this bottle of quarter cask, it was actually cheaper than the 10. As well, as well, it is not chill filtered as well, such as the 10 is. Again, it is questionable whether or not that is, relevant to the flavor of the whiskey or the texture. So,
well, on the chill filter one, we'll address that first. Now your 10's at 43, so usually now chill filters can you do from 46 up. This one, the quarter cask, is a 48, and then we've got the quarter cask, so it's just a little bit above. So now non-chill filtered normally for that. So this is a little bit more on the ABV. But do you know what's interesting? You don't get it's not as if you get that heat from the alcohol in this. It's just
I don't at
really
all.
Smooth
and I was wondering, because I was going to ask that, because I have a 46% 10 year that's the independent bottling, whereas there's only 2% difference between the quarter cask, my quarter cask, and my 10. Whereas y'all are jumping up, I guess, 5 percentage points. Is that right? From 43 to 48. Yeah. So do you guys, Chance, do you think that this is also fairly not hot from that extra alcohol?
I think it's really fascinating, and it's one of the over this last several months, we found a couple of expressions that were smoother, even though traditionally you wouldn't expect them to be. And I think this falls in that category. It's a younger whiskey, but with a higher ABV, but is more mellow, is less astringent, hot, burny than just the Laphroaig 10. It's almost like a calmed Laphroaig that would be even better, I think, than the 10 for like a new whiskey drinker to introduce them to peat and to Laphroaig.
Yeah. Or unless you wanted to fully scare them and show them the full blast of the medicinal.
This is the Laphroaig I recommend to new whiskey drinkers. Actually, it's funny you should say that. To me, this is just a really nice, mellow whiskey, in spite of its comparatively young age. I really like this bottle, and I like this better for my taste than the 10. Although I think I like the 10 better than I did the last time that I tried it, speaking to you guys about it, because I think it really does have a totally unique character amongst these Isleys that we've been trying.
Yeah. And it's also good to drink it with friends, isn't it?
That's true.
To me, it is just simply more accessible, and the quarter cask makes it even more accessible to me.
I was about to say that'd be a nice one to say. We've had that wood, and what's really nice is maybe moving to the 18-year-old. On the 18 as we go to that one, we're basically going to be exposing it to more wood, so that's going to be interesting. We can see now what's happening with that wood one, and I think the actual 18, Ryan, that's It was like a 48. It's a 48% ABV as well.
It is.
So it's probably yeah. So,
So
since you've got it, tell us about the label.
these are nice labels. These are really they're calming, they're soothing, they have a balance to them. I think they're very symmetrical. Um, it's just, hats off to Laphroaig. I think one thing that's interesting to say is that if you look at the Bowmore labels, they are also fairly basic in terms of topography and layout. Um, but the Laphroaig, this label has a certain calmness and dignity to it that I think the Bowmore labels do not. And look at them just leaning into that Prince of Wales thing. Official royal warrant, folks. Like, look at that. Official whiskey of His Majesty the Prince of Wales, His Royal Majesty the Prince of Wales.
His Royal
At
Highness.
the top of
HRH.
the label, right?
Oh yeah. Now I will
this is
say
nice, too.
they don't refer to him as the Prince of Wales, much like the rest of Scotland. They call him the Duke of Rothesay.
Not on the bottle, they don't, because I think that maybe maybe they do in the UK, but on the American labels, no American knows what that is. But every American, ever since the Prince Diana stuff, has known who the Prince of Wales is. You know what I mean?
I suppose that's true. Actually, Gary, fact check me on that. Is that real life? Do they say the Duke of Rothesay, or what's this thing?
No. Well, remember, as a prince, he's got many titles. So this, and
Oh.
Rothesay is the area, and so he's the Duke of all those areas. So that's him overlording all of that. But his highest title is the Prince of Wales, and we call him His Royal Highness. So HRH. So the actual thing that's on the bottle there, you basically got into the royal family doing product placement.
Does he wear like a Laphroaig patch on his official royal uniform? You're like a race car driver or something?
Yeah,
like
well, he's probably got a Laphroaig. He's probably got a Laphroaig tie. He's probably got a Laphroaig tie.
On his limo, he's got like big Laphroaig on the hood, sort of like Pennzoil on a stock car or something.
No, so this is his one. It probably has some of the Laphroaig tartan like that. But so this is like his one that he's endorsed. Each of the royal family have different alcohols that they've endorsed, and that by royal warrant, it means that they can basically put now endorsed by the royal family members. So as I said,
is there a list somewhere?
Product placement.
That's awesome. So wait, what is the Queen like? Do you know these off the top of your head? Like,
no, I don't know them off the top of my head. But
okay.
and the Queen does though. Actually, I think it's either her or a husband. They like some of the Speyside and the Highland whiskies, so they've got some of them from that. But that's a whole different discussion. It'd be funny to do a tasting of the royal family and endorsed whiskies.
How have we just now thought of that? That is happening next season.
So I want to jump back to labels real quick before we move on and look at the old quarter cask label, and we can see exactly what we're talking about here. See this? Look at this. We have a regular cask, and then we've got its little son. Don't talk to me or my son ever again, says the big cask. Real nice, classic-looking line drawing type stuff. Really, in all caps, non-chill filtered.
Filtered, yeah. We want you to know that. Full fat. It's a full fat whiskey.
Full fat whiskey, not reduced fat. Oh, I also want to say one more thing about these labels. If you look at the bottom, I think every Laphroaig bottle says the most richly flavored of all Scotch whiskies. Quite the claim.
Statement.
Yeah, that is quite the statement.
I love the way.
So it gets a thumbs up on the label. That's good.
I love that they lean into that.
I just love it because it harkens back to the old. They do lean into it, and I love it because it's like harkens back to the old fact-based or putative fact-based advertisements of yesteryear. Like nowadays, an advertisement is like a picture of leaves or something, and it's like car brand. But like back in the day, it was like they would literally in the newspaper say, "This is the best car," and it just here it is on the whiskey bottle right here. Love it.
Yeah, and it worked. It works for them. They stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
So this 18. And so the same thing on that 10. It's not as pungent on the nose as the 10. That you're still getting that like the antiseptic, that coastal medicinal slap in the face, but it's not quite. It's more of a tickle in the face.
And there's a little spice there too.
Do we know if this is sherry or bourbon or a combination on the 18?
You've got the bottle. What does it say? Not a clue.
It's a mystery. Wait.
I'm thinking it's probably just a bourbon.
No, this is all. It's all ex-bourbon. It says so right on the bottle.
Yeah, I'd expect it to be bourbon the whole way. I think we would have got the sherry notes coming through. So what we're going to be getting is just that lengthy sitting in. It's probably a first cask bourbon one as well. Because we're leaving it for 18.
Are you gentlemen getting like some spice or maybe a little cracked black pepper?
Yeah, pepper.
Oh yeah,
A lot of pepper.
This is. I seen that. Was it 48? This one I'm feeling a little bit of heat, a little bit of spice.
This is freaking awesome, is what this is. Also, this is not made anymore, folks. You've seen the last of the breed of the 18 bottles right here on your own screen on YouTube or in your ears if you're just doing audio podcast.
Yeah, because they introduced it in 2009 and they just had it for a short time.
And they replaced the 15 year with it in 2009, which of course the 15 was the Prince of Wales, his HRH, His Royal Highness's favorite at Laphroaig. And they replaced that with the 18, and then now, of course, the 18 is.
Now there's a 16. According to the Laphroaig website, there's a 16. I am getting a super long finish on this guy.
Yeah, this one
I don't know about you.
This just lingers. It just lingers.
This harkens more to almost a Ardbeg feeling to me than the 10 or the quarter cask do.
Yeah, and there's a meatiness in the peat. Oh yeah,
but it's got those delicious. But it's got those delicious oils that we found in the 10. Those are still here, and I really love the mouthfeel that they give this particular whiskey.
Yeah, very good.
This is beautiful whiskey. I really like this stuff. I'm getting a little bit of sweetness from the bourbon as well over the 10, and certainly over the quarter cask, which spent a proportion of its time in virgin oak that was not first fill of anything. So
yeah, and I'm getting that sweetness even on the nose. I think what it is that's the wood starting to really influence over the peat. What a sweet peatness it is. It's delicious.
It's crazy that this, I feel, is of a completely different character than the 10 is.
Yeah.
Just to me, that additional 8 years has transformed this whiskey.
Yeah. I rarely find myself in a place where I prefer an older whiskey. I tend to like newer whiskeys, but I think I prefer this 18 over the 10. Like this is, it's got additional complexity. It's got all the notes and stuff like that I found in the 10, as well as adding additional. I love this.
Yeah.
So I'm getting the peat coming through on the back of the hand test. I'm getting a bit more of that peat coming through as well.
That's interesting.
It's certainly not overwhelming like it is on some other whiskeys. And the 10, I felt it wasn't really there much at all.
Oh yeah.
But here,
that's interesting.
Yeah, here this is coming through.
Yeah.
Oof, what a nice whiskey. I'm not going to pour a dram of this very often, given that this isn't made anymore. But it's definitely reminded me that it's made to be enjoyed, and I'm really pleased to be enjoying it with you two fellows instead of just drinking it myself or something here.
Yeah, this is delicious. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you're finishing that 18 now. So what's next?
Okay, so we're gonna go to the Select. That 18 was amazing, just absolutely fantastic. We're gonna move on. We're gonna do Laphroaig Select. I'm gonna pour a dram.
So, what do we know about Laphroaig Select? Anyone want to volunteer the deets? What's the deal with Select?
Yes, it's Select. So I'll let Chance finish it off, but it was introduced into the range in 2014. So as Laphroaig now, they've been busy playing about with things. So in 2014, they introduced this in to the range from there. And Chance, you want some notes on it?
So what they did is they put together, my understanding, and I could be wrong, I was that one time in 2002. My understanding is that they put together 6 different kind of cask finishes. And one of them was 10 years and then finished for 6 months in brand new American oak barrels. And then the Friends of Laphroaig, which is a group of people who have, like, if I'm not mistaken, bought like a square foot of land at the Laphroaig distillery or like in the Laphroaig lands. And
that's right.
Their rent each year is a single dram of scotch, which I think is just glorious. Excellent marketing there. They went through and they tasted and they selected the 10-year aged for 6 months in the brand new American oak barrels. And that became the Laphroaig Select, which is what we're tasting here.
Yeah, and that's correct. And so the Friends of Laphroaig is the equivalent of the Ardbeg Committee.
Yeah.
So this is the one that when you're on there, and that's it. That's the great now marketing one that you were saying they really do. Every bottle comes with it. You can send away and claim your square foot of land on Isla, and it's where they cut the peat. So they owe you your payment for them cutting the peat on your land is that you can go to the distillery and claim your dram of whiskey. So that's your little bit of picking up your landlord's dues there. But great marketing, bring you to the island.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I just bought this Laphroaig 10. I'm about to go find that and send away and get my free square foot. I told y'all previously that I am a lord of Scotland because I own a square foot of land of Scotland. I might as well double the size of my holdings.
Yeah, exactly.
So off the bat, this nose to me is quite sweet.
Yeah, this is what it's ABV'd at 40%. So it's
40. Okay.
After what we've just had now, this is like a refreshing. Actually, it's a bit like a little refreshing interlude. This after well, kind of like that was Big Wood, as we've come back to something a bit younger, but it's not peat forward.
No, not on the nose at least.
Those new oak barrels, they really smooth out that barley really well.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, I mean you're still getting like a little bit medicinals, but nothing. It's more like a faint breeze that's coming off the sea as opposed to a full blown wind in your face of medicinal flavors and coastal tendencies.
To me, this is very mild.
Yeah, especially for a Laphroaig.
For an Islay, for a Laphroaig, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like instead of bathing in iodine, it's more like, you walk by the door where someone was cleaning a wound. That is probably not what they ever wanted for someone to describe their whiskey like, but there you go.
To me, this maintains a lot of the medicinalness of the 10 on the nose and on the palate, but there's zero alcohol sting. This almost tastes like a non-alcoholic whiskey to me, very nearly. Like there's no burn,
That'd be your description. It'll be, this is the non-alcoholic version of the Laphroaig. You should send that to them as some of the feedback.
There's no burn. There's no alcohol burn on the tongue. It's basically like it's homeopathic Laphroaig. I really like this though because it has just that hit of the medicinalness of the iodine although I don't really get the salt spray. I don't really get the brine.
There's no fizz on your tongue or the saltiness, and that is very quick finish as well. It's smooth. It's a very smooth. Yeah, it's been picked.
This is really good for like a Monday night or something, and you have to go to bed early.
Exactly. Yeah, and you still want a little Laphroaig, but you don't want to go too much in.
I think building on what you were saying, Ryan, something that's really fascinating. So we talked about last week how Lagavulin rented the Laphroaig distillery for a period of time. But they taste completely different, even though there were a bunch of lawsuits and drama and nonsense. One of the predominant things that we talked about with Laphroaig with Lagavulin was the sea spray and the sea salt and and I have not had sea salt in a single dram tonight. We'll see when we get to the Cairdeas if I get some, but I haven't gotten sea salt in any of them.
No,
interesting.
And that 10, I was getting something in the 10.
The 10,
a little fizz. I mean, it's a full.
To be, I think I typified it as sort of a briny saltiness on the finish from the 10. Is that what you mean, Chance? So you're thinking on the nose or something like a sea spray type thing? I didn't get that either.
One of the things I remember about Lagavulin is like on the nose and then on the palate. The images of the woman in the long flowing white dress standing on the cliff face, oceans shooting up to left and right, and the wind blowing everything back. That's the sort of the taste of the sea salt that I had there. I know it's ridiculous. I was a theater major, if anybody didn't know. So coming here, I get some salt, I get a little bit of brine, and I definitely get some of that maritime stuff, but I don't get that bright, shining, floating mist of sea salt that one would imagine.
Compared to what whiskey, Chance? What would you recommend for just getting blown away by a wave.
By a wave? Oh, the Lagavulin we did last week.
Lagavulin? Okay.
Yeah, Lagavulin does that for you. That's
Yeah,
good.
Lagavulin. It's it's the lady in the white dress on the cliffs of Dover, and stuff blown. Yeah, like that's for me. What I see. This is much more like I don't know, but it's delicious.
No, this is late. This is, as you're saying, I think actually this is, we're saying it could be late night, Monday evening, or this could be maybe during the day, 2:00 in the afternoon, looking for a little pick me up after lunch. But
between meetings,
between meetings, exactly.
So and you got one coming up you need to be alert for. Like, the next meeting.
Sun shining. The picnic, this could be a good picnic whiskey.
Yeah.
That just to refresh.
So if the sun were shining, if the sun were shining on a bottle of Laphroaig 10, this bottle is the shadow cast by the 10.
Oh, nicely said.
There we go.
I appreciate the waxing poetic. Very nice.
Yeah. A nice way of us actually just waxing out of this one and on to kind of like the final one.
So we've got a little bit of a scandal going on here because we got 2 different bottles of Cairdeas this week, folks. We got the yellow label and the green label.
Yeah, and so first of all, Cairdeas in Gaelic. Now, Cairdeas, that stands for friendship. So this is an excellent one for us to be finishing up on this one on the Cairdeas. Now, this one I've got is done in 2015, so it was the 200th year anniversary Cairdeas that they were bringing out. So Cairdeas was actually brought in about 2008. They started doing like these special editions that they were doing, and basically it's whatever the distillery manager bloody well thought he wanted to do, he was going to mix, and that was going to become the annual mix for Cairdeas. But for 2015, what they did with this one that was a little bit special was, I was talking a little bit earlier about they've got 4 spirit stills, and one of those spirit stills is smaller, and that smaller still produces oily, maybe a little bit fruiter notes. It's a smaller one, it's a heavier product comes through. For this Cairdeas, what they actually done was they made this one entirely in the small still. So think about that. So they were going for the heaviest, oiliest. This small one, fruity notes were coming through for this one. So they made this really special. And what was the other thing was, the other thing they did about it, and this you're going to like, and it'll be interesting what we get from this, pour this, is in the storage. Quite often we talk about you put it into the casks and then you store it, and where it's stored can be important as well. And for this one on Laphroaig, on the actual grounds, I've got several warehouses, and one of the warehouses, and it's called a dunnage warehouse, and that's ones where you've still got an earth base. You go into the building, it's still earth and it's not been concreted over. So one of them is dunnage warehouse number 1, and that's the one that you always see in the picture and is exposed to the Atlantic. It's fully exposed to the Atlantic, and so it's really getting the full blast of it. So this one was done with a nod to 200 years ago, getting really close to what we'd call the original Laphroaig that you've got. So when we taste this one, it should be maybe a little bit, I'm not going to do this blind with us together, but a little bit fruitier, from what we've got, oilier even. So it's going to have some differences to the ones we've been trying. That, and what was I missed the ABV in this one. So it was ABV is 51.5 as well. Jeez. This one that we're bringing, so this one we're getting a lot, but and it's 11 to 12 years. That's what there's no actual note age statements on it, but for this edition it was an 11 to 12. And do you remember earlier on we were talking about the malting? The third thing about this one is this was only done using malting from the distillery, so they didn't use any Port Ellen malting. So this is 100% was cold smoked, peated at the distillery. So this is as pure as you're going to get the essence of it. So there's a heavier cokiness of it. Mm-hmm. So on the nose, it's not particularly like stronger on the nose than others.
No, the sweetness is a different character for me than the sweetness of the, say, Select or the Quarter Cask or the 10. It's, like you said, it's a bit more of a fruity sweetness to me.
Yeah, so what they've done, they've used the smallest still in distilling this, and that is what's given some of the characteristics to this, so very different from the other ones.
Mm.
This is a bit of a treat in the sense of it's really different from what you've been tasting.
Mm.
Trying a little bit.
This is so sweet to me.
Mm-hmm.
Predominantly just immediately on the palate for me. Boom.
Yeah.
It's sweet.
Now this is an important thing.
It's at 51% alcohol. I do get a little bit of a little bit of a heat coming through from just the alcohol.
And I think it's important that we identify, because we're trying two different Cairdeases, and as Gary mentioned, they're different year to year. Ryan, what was unique about your Cairdeas? What do they market it as?
Yeah, so this is the yellow label one, as you can see. I like this because this is just a lovely golden color, as you can see, that goes well with this label. This is, of course, the most richly flavored of all Scotch whiskies, as are all Laphroaigs. But what set this one apart, and what's super interesting, I think, about this bottle is that if you look at a lot of these heavily peated, smoky Islay whiskeys, you'll find that if you look at like the Lagavulin Distillers Edition, for example, or the Killiman, they have PX aging, which is an extremely sweet sherry. You get 212 grams per liter of sugar in a typical PX wine. This, however, was aged in Amontillado sherry casks, and Amontillado is one of the driest sherries. It goes Fino, which is one of the driest of the sherries, and then Amontillado, then Oloroso. And so we're mixing this heavily peated Scotch whiskey with a dry sherry, and that's what makes this one stand out. So
Amontillado. That's like a cask of Amontillado, Edgar Allan Poe, bricking the guy up in the wall. Stuff. Yeah.
Don't spoilers. Jeez, warn a guy.
Sorry, it's only been out for a couple hundred years.
That's true. I think if you were not forced to read it at this point, then there's no helping you. But yeah. Spoiler alert: the narrator is a murderer, guys. Jeez, sorry.
Oh God, yeah.
Ryan actually has got the benefit. He's got both of them, so he can actually compare them for us.
So the nose on the yellow bottle, the 2014 Amontillado, I'm getting a bit of astringency on the nose as opposed to the sweetness that I got from the 2015.
And so I'm wondering if that's the stills as well as you've got the cask. Interesting what the cask is doing to it.
There is sherry influence here.
Okay.
But again, it's not bursting with that sweetness, the fruits. This is a more leathery type sherry, similar to an Oloroso, but there's an astringency on the back of the palate for me for this.
Yeah, it's like the peat and the sherry are at odds with each other rather than like overwhelming, right? Like with PX, you can get where it sort of like flows over the peat and enhances it. This is more like they're there and they're like pushing against each other, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, this is a more difficult dram in terms of thinking about what's going on, I think, than any of the preceding ones. The nose is just super interesting, and I wonder if that's the character, because I've never had Amontillado sherry before. So I really like this. The peat comes in after the sherry flavor for me on the palate.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to talk about here.
Keep going.
There's something on the back of the palate that makes my mouth continuously water with this one, and I don't know why. It's interesting.
I think you
salivate. Good.
I think you're accurate. Yeah, like this, when you first, like with this particular one, when I first sip it, it is not like an Islay. It's almost more like a Spey. And it's not until after I've swallowed and I'm getting the finish that I get the peat. There's absolutely none almost on the front. I mean, it's
this
not
guy
a
is
McKellen.
Also 51.4 as well. So
and the amount of burn for 51.4 is ridiculous. Like there's just almost it should be more. One would expect more, I should say.
If you open this up with a little water, Chance, open this guy up with a little water, and tell me what you think, and we'll do 1, 2, 3, and we'll say our impressions and see if we match up. because something interesting happened for me when I opened this guy up a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, I'm waiting.
Oh,
Watching
we're
this with
gonna do
excitement.
1, 2,
Yeah.
3, are we? Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, we're not going to influence each other with opinions.
Okay,
Let's see what happens. I'm
that's
curious.
exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, his face is telling. Okay, you guys
It's
ready?
actually, yeah, ready. Okay, yeah, he needs to taste it because this is
Taste,
honestly,
taste a little bit. Right.
honestly, this
Taste
is
a little
crazy to me, the transformation that this has undergone.
Okay, ready? 1,
Okay, ready?
2,
2,
3.
3, more
Right.
Pete.
Yeah, that.
No, man, come on.
No, chance. You were like chancing it there. That was.
No, so
Sorry, that was just really funny to me.
actually,
Yeah.
I put quite a bit of water in this. I put quite a bit of water in this, and then on the palate, suddenly just smoke and peat sprang forth on the palate in the way that it had not before the water.
You are absolutely correct. All right, but we should move on. We should go to our closing drams.
Yeah, closing drams. So my closing dram, as you've seen earlier, I was saying that I've already been to the distillery. So I'm holding a very unique bottle here. So this is bottled by Gary McAdam. I officially bottled this, selected the cask, and I bottled this. It was distilled in 2005, and it was about 12, 13 years old when I basically took it out of the cask officially and signed my name in the official register for the alcohol's recognition of it, and basically created this bottle. Its ABV is 56.1. That, the small one. I recommend that if you go to the distillery, you take the tour and you do the one where you get to bottle your own bottle of Laphroaig to take home for personal consumption. As you can see, there's a little bit left in there. And so I'm going to use this one as my final dram.
Look
and
at
it's
that
such a
swag,
great way
man.
to finish the year. Yeah, that is good
Absolutely
swag.
dripping swag, this man.
Yeah.
Okay, since since we don't get to drink together because of COVID in person, I'm going to go ahead and pour a glass of this super special 18
Oh,
because
very nice.
I'm enjoying a dram with you gentlemen tonight. It's a pleasure as always.
I got 2 bottles that I'm at the bottom of, the Quarter Cask and the Select, and it's the season finale. You gentlemen are wonderful people. We're about to end 2020. It was a garbage fire of a year. What better thing to end with than Laphroaig that on occasion smells like a garbage fire? This is just perfect. I'm doing it. I'm going to end with the Select.
You're going to Select?
No,
Okay.
I lied. I'm going to go with the Quarter.
No, go Quarter Cask. Excellent.
Quarter
Good
Cask.
choice.
And
Good choice. She was doing something special as we finished 2020. That was excellent.
I'm going to attempt a toast. I'm going to make this up off the top of my head. So let's see how this goes. All right. It's been a pleasure this year to get together for a dram with me, Gary, Ryan, and all you listening friends. We tasted many things smelling of peat, salt, and heather. And we thank you for joining us here on A Dram and a Blether.
Oh, there it is. Pulling it home.
Slange.
Slange. Well, that completes this season of A Dram and a Blether. The Gents are going to take a few months off, but fear not, they will be returning for season 2. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please drink responsibly.